If I asked you what's the best stat stick in the game, a lot of you would probably say the ceramic dagger. But why? You see, just because you know something is good doesn't mean you can utilize it. You need to know why something is good in order to take full advantage of it. Helmets are good because they protect your head from damage, but you're probably not gonna wear one while you're swimming. So why exactly is the ceramic dagger so good? Well, the weapon itself is okay at best. You can get it from Nightwave, it does primarily puncture damage, and the secondary stats are nothing to write home about. It does come with a very nice passive bonus that gives you 10% bonus movement speed when wielded though. Bonus movement speed is actually very good, which is why it's not present on too many things. It affects walking, crouching, springing, rolling, gliding, and jump kicking. But there are other weapons that have a similar or even the same bonus, so that's not it. There are also weapons with just straight up better passive bonuses, because while pseudo-exalted abilities are not affected by the weapon's stats, there are some exceptions, like the progenitor bonuses on Kuva and Tenet weapons. So is it perhaps its relatively high Riven disposition, which at the moment is at 1.43. Rivens can add a tremendous amount of damage to pseudo-exalted abilities like Atlas's Landslide, Korra's Whipclaw, or Gara's Shattered Lash, because pseudo-exalted abilities are somewhat limited when it comes to damage scaling. You are, for the most part, using raw generic damage, elemental damage, and then a physical damage type that matches the ability. For Landslide, you can use Impact, Korra's Whipclaw scales with all of them, and for Shattered Lash, you can use either Slash or Puncture depending on which version of the ability you are using. Because with Shattered Lash, when you tap it, you do puncture damage, and when you hold it down, you do slash damage. You can also scale crit and status, but you have to be careful which ability you're stat sticking, as Shattered Lash has no crit and status and Landslide has 5% for both. So as you might imagine, having a well-rolled Riven that has a nice combination of the stats that you desire for your pseudo-exalted ability is very strong. But that's also not the reason why it's the best, because if strong Rivens were the main thing you were looking for, you would just use the weapon with the highest Riven disposition. So is it perhaps its Incarnon Genesis upgrade? Because just activating Incarnon mode on the ceramic dagger gives you 100% increased melee damage, which affects the pseudo-exalted ability as well. This makes it better than melee weapons that don't have access to Incarnon Genesis, but it doesn't necessarily make it better than other Incarnon melees. However, one stat that I've yet to mention that also scales the damage of pseudo-exalted abilities is the melee combo counter. Now, this is not that big of a deal on Landslide and Whipclaw because they generate their own combo counter when you hit stuff, but Shattered Lash doesn't. And this is where the ceramic dagger shows its most unique feature. It's able to maintain the highest initial combo out of any melee weapon in the game. You can get up to 100 from Gun and Blade, additional 20 from Adept Reflexes, you can run Corrupt Charge for extra 30, and because it's a dagger you can also slap on Covert Lethality for extra 16. That is a grand total of 166 combo hits or a 9 times combo multiplier at all times. And there are a few things to be said about that. First of all, that is a lot of extra damage. Second of all, because it's initial combo, you can do heavy attacks willy-nilly and it will never drop below that, so it's very good for keeping up Incarnon mode without having to rebuild your combo every time you activate it. And third of all, that's the maximum initial combo without a Riven. You can go much higher if you get a Riven with initial combo on it. This, however, doesn't do much for Landslide or Whipclaw, because they build their own combo. So as long as you have some combo sustain, whether it is a combo mod or even the Naramon Focus School, you can very easily sit a 12 times combo with Landslide and Whipclaw. Shattered Lash is a little bit more complicated though, because if you want to sit a 12 times combo with that, you will have to melee attack in between the lashes. But that's not necessarily better, it's just more convenient. And you also have to bear in mind that running Corrupt Charge and Covert Lethality eats up your mod slots. So most of the time you're just gonna use the perks and not mods to get you at 120 combo hits, which is a 6 times combo multiplier. So you're better off building it as a normal stat stake rather than, you know, doing the combo nonsense. So again, better? No. More convenient? Perhaps. So why is it supposedly so good? Well, turns out the only thing that makes it necessarily better than the other stat stakes is the last line of evolutions, because, unless I'm sorely mistaken, it provides the highest base critical chance bonus out of all of them. Because the ceramic dagger gets 30% crit chance as opposed to 25, which you get on Sibera and Skana, or 21, which you get on Nami solo. The reason this is important is because this bonus crit chance applies to pseudo-exalted abilities as well, and it's added before mods. So the crit chance on Landslide goes from 5 to 35, on Whipclaw it goes from 25 to 55, and on Shattered Lash it goes from 0 to 30. Though one thing to bear in mind is that Shattered Lash doesn't have any innate crit multiplier, so by default you don't actually get any extra damage from critting. You can change this though by adding crit multiplier mods. It's also worth mentioning that the crit isn't the only good evolution there. The 30% extra status chance is very good as well, because it allows you to run slash based Whipclaw on Korra or even a gas based Landslide setup. Gas based Landslide is actually the more interesting one because you can still get a decent amount of slash procs on Whipclaw since the base status chance is 20%, but on Landslide you only have 5%. So it opens up some unique builds as well. So the reason why Ceramic Dagger is such a good stat stick is because A, it's an incarnate weapon, so you get 100% melee damage from activating incarnate mode. B, it provides your pseudo-exalted abilities with the highest possible crit chance bonus from its evolutions. C, it has high Riven disposition, so the Riven rolls are gonna be quite good. D, it has a solid passive bonus. I mean, 10% bonus movement speed is really good. The game right now is ruled by Volts and Wisps, zooming through missions as fast as they can. And I'm also going to put in E, the initial combo shenanigans, because while it's not necessarily better, it is very convenient. Now, before we wrap it up, I want to talk about the build styles that you're going to run on these different Warframes, so Atlas, Korra, and Gara, because you're not going to run the same build on your stat stick. With Atlas, you're either going to run a heavy-hitting red crit setup or a gas-based setup, and you have to run the appropriate stat stick build and evolution for the setup you're using. With Korra, it's a little bit more straightforward, because you're basically going to run hybrid no matter what, but you can lean it either more towards crit or status depending on the evolution you choose. And with Gara, you actually want to pay attention to the initial combo evolutions and maintain those, because with Gara, well, she doesn't build her own combo, and it's difficult to build combo on a well-built Gara because she does so much damage, which makes it difficult to actually constantly hit enemies with a melee weapon. So you focus on the initial combo and then you actually build the stat stick for raw damage. It's very inefficient to try and scale crit because the base crit multiplier is 1 and you're at best getting 30% base crit chance through the evolution, and status doesn't really do much for Gara because she's mostly about upfront damage. Though there is actually a slash build for Gara where you pick the status based evolution on the Ceramic Dagger, then you build the dagger for raw damage, status and slash, and then you use the slashing variant of Shattered Lash. That is a pretty hipster build though, so you're generally better off running a Mass Vitrifying Nuker or a Splinter Storm setup. And that is pretty much it for the video. This is why the Ceramic Dagger is considered by many to be the best stat stick in the game. And as always guys, I thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful, and I would also like to extend a special thank you to all the channel members. Thank you very much guys, I really appreciate your support. If by the way you would like to see anything else explained in this style of video, leave a comment down below. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.